Hello, we are live. We are live.
Hooray! Live, it's alive.
It's true. It is very true.
Wait,
Um,
what?
all right. So I see us and we have confirmation on Twitch. I
Let
need
me
to
see if we get
open
confirmation
YouTube.
on
I always forget to
YouTube.
open YouTube because it's like a different browser identity. Um,
Yep. John Suffel says they see and hear us.
okay.
We did it.
We did the thing.
Right. Well then, uh, what's news? Man, crazy day today. I hadn't been doing enough interviews, and so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I got to get some more interviews in the pipeline. And so before I use Calendly,
Mm-hmm.
which is a game changer, by the way. If you ever need to like have people book meetings with you, Calendly is the best thing ever. Um,
Calendly and
you,
I had a moment where I would go to bed and have the next day completely open and sleep in and wake up to
mm.
find I had missed 3 meetings.
So you can modify that. So
Okay.
so I've set Calendly that it can't book any meetings on the same day, and it can only book a maximum of X meetings on the days that I am taking meetings.
Okay.
And it has to have a certain buffer in between the meetings. So you've got a little bit of time to collect your thoughts between so that it doesn't put them back to back to back.
I think
So
those are new features from when
these are
it
all they could be
betrayed
new
me.
features. Yeah. And I jumped on them all
Yeah.
because then it gives me a really good chance to fine tune it. So what I had been running on was one interview a day
Mm-hmm.
maximum. And I I I only allow 3 days in the week to have meetings scheduled in them. 2 days, there's no meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're blocked off of my calendar.
Okay.
Um, just so I can, it's just nice to have days of undistracted, productive
Yeah.
work, right? Or if I want to go and visit somebody or go for a hike or whatever, then I've
Yeah.
got 2 days a week that I can do that on. And so, but I was didn't have enough interviews in the pipeline. I'm like, well, I'm going to relax Calendly to allow more interviews in one day. Well, what do you know? So I've got 3 interviews today, plus Astronomy Cast, plus my live stream. So this is my third today, my third of 5 hour plus long. So I'll probably be in conversations like this for close to 8 hours today. So
I
um
am working on writing a National Science Foundation grant, and it's
mhm.
Veterans Day, which means technically it is a holiday.
Yeah, it's a holiday here.
And I had this realization on Thursday or Friday of last week. A non-academic friend asked me, "Hey, so do you want to get together and do some stuff over Thanksgiving or Christmas?" And I just kind of looked at them and I went, "I'm an academic. Our holidays are purposefully destroyed because no one is teaching. And the
Mm,
expectation is Thanksgiving is spent preparing for the American Geophysical Union conference, and Christmas is spent preparing for the American Astronomical Society conference." And then I realized the timing of the NSF AAG grant is permanently set so that every Veterans Day for the entirety of my career
mhm.
will be ruined by this deadline.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like lined up where they're like, we know academics are busy.
Let's be
What is
nice and give them a holiday to work
Give them
over.
a holiday to work on to get their grants in the door. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. All right. Shall we proceed?
We might as well. Might as well.
It's our job. It's what we
It
do. It's who
is.
we are.
Oh shoot, I forgot to open the audio software. One moment, please.
And don't forget
Stand
the
by.
patrons.
That I remembered. I did remember that one. I was so focused on remembering that one, totally forgot to open the audio software. I'm also like on coffee number 4, so hopefully I won't hit resonance while we're recording, but at some point today, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. We might see it happen. We might watch you
Yeah,
phase shift into another
I
universe
know.
purely through vibration.
But this is what happens when you're grant writing. Like yesterday, I have lots of allergies, and someone who cooks better than I do was like, "If you come over, I will feed you," which was a very exciting proposition. And I'm being asked, "Are your fingertips pink?" I don't know. I think so. Yes, my
Is that from doing
fingertips.
your hair?
No, they're just pink.
Mm.
I probably touched something I'm allergic to. I was
Oh,
trying
right.
on boots earlier today, and I'm pretty sure I'm allergic to the boots, but I'm going to put them back on again later because they're really pretty boots and I don't want to be allergic to them.
Yeah, your fingers are pink though.
Yeah, I know. I'm probably allergic to the boots. So as I said, I have a lot of allergies, and I was bribed over to a friend's house with promises of food I didn't have to cook, and that would
Hmm.
be tastier than anything I could possibly cook. And
But made of allergies.
no, 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 her stuff. She has memorized the list of things I am allergic to and can cook around it. It is very exciting. And I took my laptop and I worked on my grant up until she put a plate of food in my hands. And then I realized I should not set the plate on the laptop. And I put the laptop on the floor for exactly how long it took me to vacuum clean the plate with my face. And then I went straight back to working on my grant on her sofa.
Right.
I'm a
All right. Let me
terrible
know when you're
friend.
ready.
Okay, I am pressing record on the audio. I am pressing record on the video. Everything is recording. We are
Here we
go.
go. Astronomy Cast, episode 734, the Einstein Probe. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
Like every single person I know in my country right now,
Yeah,
I am not entirely all right, but I am
right. You're
compensating by drinking coffee in large amounts.
perfect. Yeah. And working on science proposals
I
because
am.
science never sleeps.
It's true. I am currently working on 4 different proposals to the NSF AAG. I am PIing one, co-eyeing 3 others. And overwork and too much caffeine is how I get through life.
Yeah. As you say, it is a interesting time,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of reporting that we're doing at Universe Today, just trying to wrap our minds around the potential shifts to science funding, to space funding, to Artemis, SpaceX. So it's going to be all hands on deck for a little while here while we try to digest what the implications are going to be of the changing administration
Yeah.
with Elon Musk potentially coming in to cut costs and like I it's a weird time.
Yeah.
So
One of the
um
things we had to do with EVSN, Escape Velocity Space News, our news podcast and show, is we had multiple people come to us and say, look, you guys are affiliated with government funding. You probably want to not say anything about Elon Musk that isn't absolutely shiny and good,
right.
and or Trump. And I sat down with my team and I was like, I don't want to do that, but there could be consequences. Back during the last Trump administration, um, I received a reprimand for saying negative things about Trump using my personal Twitter
Mm,
account, in the same letter that I had my NASA funding reduced. It was clear retaliation. It was documentable, and I was told no one could do anything because of the political situation. Even though, as a private citizen, I can legally use my personal Twitter account to say anything that is legal to say.
right.
Um, it will only be magnified in the next administration, given the Supreme Court filings. But
Well,
as a,
oh, I mean, for me as a Canadian,
you can
and
say
not
anything.
funded by any specific government group
Yeah,
or really any sponsors except for our patrons.
yeah,
We don't have any concerns. And that reminds me that I'm definitely seeing that we are entering what I would consider to be the end game of modern journalism.
yeah,
I can feel the funding seeping away from sort of the various places that people were funding through advertising.
yeah,
I'm getting a lot of requests from people on the writing team for more work.
yeah,
So, the kinds of people on my team who maybe were writing for a lot of different groups, they're kind of going, "Hey, Fraser, do you have any more work? Do you have any
hmm,
more work?" So, if you want to ensure that the work that Pamela does, the work that I do, continues on and is strong in uncertain times and hopefully can remain as independent as humanly
yeah,
possible, definitely consider joining our Patreons. Yours is CosmoQuest X, mine Universe Today. The one that we share here with this show is Astronomy Cast. None of these things would exist if it wasn't for the patrons'
yeah,
direct support of the work that we do. I would shut Universe Today down
yeah,
is what I would do if I didn't have the patrons. So the fact that I am able to continue on and even give work to the writers who are coming to me and saying, what have you got,
yeah,
is amazing. And yet there are limits to what we can afford as well. So
yeah.
every bit helps.
And
You're going to hear a lot about this. Hmm?
both of our teams are dedicated to reporting
Yeah.
science and facts and being skeptical and getting to the bottom of the story.
Yeah.
And we aren't going to curb what we say. You will never curb what you say. We're going to report what is true, even
Right.
when it's not good.
Yes. Until either we are, I guess, until our systems are financially independent
Yeah.
or the market forces have dragged them under.
Yeah.
So, and this is the world that we live in right now. So, anyway, if you like the work that we do, if you think independent space news, reporting, education is important, please come and join our Patreons. All right, let's get into this week's show. Another day, another space telescope. Today, we're looking at the newly launched Einstein probe, a collaboration between the Chinese Space Agency and the European Space Agency. The mission has been operating since January, searching the cosmos for short, bright flashes of X-rays. And we will talk about it in a second, but it's time for a break. And we're back. So, when you put the subject in the list, it was Einstein Mission.
Yes.
And then I went and did a search for Einstein Mission, and I get Einstein Telescope, which is the upcoming gravitational wave observatory concept, like 40-kilometer long arms, like a monster version of LIGO. That's not what we're talking
No.
about because that doesn't exist. I knew it doesn't exist, and therefore that can't be the one that we're talking about. But there have been a lot of missions and probes and ideas and experiments that have used Einstein's name, and yet the one that is most recent and the one that I think is delivering the results now is the Einstein probe. So did I get it right? We're
You
talking about
did.
the Chinese. Okay, good,
Yes.
good. I just
Yes.
want to make sure he
And
is.
and
You've been so influential on space and astronomy that a lot of people are inspired by his name, want to include it.
and the wonderful thing that occurred entirely by accident was I set our schedule back in August outlining what all we'd be talking about up through January. And when I added this one to the list, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a gamble. I'm going to hope that they have some results by the time
Results,
we talk about
right?
it. And sure enough, first week of November, they came out with their first round of science, and we got lucky, and
All is good in the world
all
again.
is good with
Okay.
the world.
Um,
Yes.
so let's talk about it then. So let's talk about the mission. So what is it?
It is a X-ray mission that uses, and This is the real reason I wanted to talk about this.
Say the word. You're going to say lobster eyes, aren't you?
Lobster!
Yeah.
It has lobster eye optics that allow it to have a wide field of view in the X-ray, which is, other than this one weirdo crustacean inspired technology, X-ray, you don't get wide field. It can only
Mhm.
be done this way that we know of.
So let's talk about that. Why you can't get wide field? Because we've done X-rays, talked about X-ray telescopes in
Yeah.
the past, talked about Chandra. What is the traditional way that you, and I am making air quotes now, focus X-rays?
So X-rays have extremely high energies, and if you try and reflect them off of a standard reflecting mirror, they're going to say no, and they are going to pass through the mirror, which is not useful. If you try and refract them with most materials, they are simply going to go through the lens and continue on. Also, not useful. So, what typically gets done, and this is what Chandra and Fermi both do, is they use a scattering system where the X rays come in and graze off the edges of the system and get essentially focused through these grazing reflections until they go through usually some sort of a shadow grid so that they can figure out, based on what is and isn't shadowed, where in the field of view an X-ray came from, and then onto a detector.
Right.
That's what's normally
So,
done.
right. So it's kind of like, I don't know, trying to catch ricocheting bullets as opposed
Exactly.
to focusing light the way a telescope does.
Yes.
Okay. And so then how does the Einstein probe with its lobster eyes? It's okay. You can say this as many times as you want in this episode.
Yes.
Um, how how does it work?
Well, it turns out that actual lobster eyeballs are a series of little squares of essentially refracting material that slightly refract the light into the optical sensor and divert it like fiber optics. It's not like lobster eyeballs actually have fiber optics,
That would
but
be cool.
it
Yeah.
would be cool. I don't know how you'd spin glass and grow it over time. Would be cool. But these lobster eyeballs act like they have fiber optics behind these cube refracting materials, and it directs the light from a greater than 180-degree field of view into the lobster eyeball and onto the retina where it's detected. And so you have all these little detectors over this we've all seen them, it's basically a hemisphere. And each of these little squares collects light from one section of their world and focuses it down. Well, with lobster eye optics, they have all of these little squares that are looking at part of the sky, scattering the X ray light down onto a detector in a similar way to how these eyeballs are working. This is something that was theorized by Roger Allen, who is famous for the Arizona Mirror Lab. He theorized this back in the 70s.
Hmm.
It got tested earlier on in a different satellite and then finally got deployed at scale by the Einstein probe. Now, one thing I feel the need to point out is the Einstein probe is, as you said, a collaboration between the Chinese Academy of Science, the European Space Agency, Max Planck, and all the English facing sites are like Einstein probe. And the targets of opportunity that they flag are all EP is the code that goes to the beginning of the license plate number. But it's also given the, and I'm going to mispronounce this because that's what I do, it's also the Tiangong, which is in honor of the Crab Nebula 1054 supernova, which was in that constellation in the Chinese sky. So this is a mission that has two names. So
Mm.
you may see it referenced both ways depending on what country you're in and what language website you're reading.
So the Tian, you hear a lot of spacecraft with
Yeah.
that name. Tiangong, the space station.
Yeah.
Um, and so the Tian is the word for day,
Okay.
right? So like today is Jintian. Um, but it also means sky or heaven.
Okay.
And so often it's like heavenly something, heavenly cathedral, heavenly palace, heavenly whatever.
Yeah.
Tianwen, yeah, they give them these names, and often the Tian part is part of the name of almost every one of the Chinese space missions. So if you sort of see that Tian, just remember that that means like heavenly. All right, we're going to talk about the spacecraft some more, but it's time for another break. And we're back. Okay, so you've got these lobster eyes that are observing a very wide field of view.
Yeah.
It is huge. It's like a hemisphere of the
Yeah.
sky.
It's really impressive, and with all these little squares focusing in on the sky, it's also producing these super weird pixelated images. But this isn't just entirely new technology for how they're focusing the light. It's also modern day sensitive detectors, which we haven't really had in a while. Chandra is 1980s, 1990s technology. Fermi's 1990s, early 2000s technologies. Um, these are brand new, super sensitive detectors. So you have wide uh, field of view, highly sensitive, and the piece de la resistance is that lobster eye optics wide field camera is only one of the two instruments on board.
Hmm.
The other only has a 5 arc minute field of view. So they are able to go from seeing vast swath of the sky to seeing tiny itty bitty little bit and zooming in to figure out exactly where um, X-ray things are flickering and flaring in the sky. This is as Fermi is to gamma rays. Einstein probe is to X-rays. It's out there looking for transient phenomena.
Right. I mean, I think about the Swift
Yeah,
telescope that we talked about just a couple of weeks ago, that it is scanning the sky waiting for a flash of gamma rays, and then it can quickly turn and try to resolve the afterglow. And so with this thing is looking for these very brief transient flashes of X-rays, and then it can turn and focus with the second instrument to be able to resolve what's actually going on.
and if you look at their publications list, you'll see linked paper after paper, or I guess circular after circular, that are swift follow up observations of these Einstein probe
Mm,
alerts that have gone out. Sadly, this is a closed collaboration, so random scientists like me who try and click on the links to the alerts are simply
right.
told, no, you are forbidden, and become sad. But there is a collaboration between the missions that is reflected in all sorts of mutual detections of the same objects.
Yeah, typically the European Space Agency is a big fan of that 1 year plus embargo period. And so we saw
Yeah,
that with the Rosetta mission. We've seen that with other European Space Agency missions. They'll, if you've got a spacecraft that's got a little bit of NASA and a little bit of ESA on it, then they'll, things like James Webb, then
yeah.
generally we see things with some kind of balance, but ESA is much more leaning towards that. And I'm, I don't know what influence the Chinese Academy of Science had on that direction, but it is definitely a the first observations are going to the scientists, and
Yeah.
then things will be opened up the embargo will be lifted into the future, and more data will be available to more of the public.
Yes.
So what kinds of things, what are the kinds of transient phenomena that we will hope to see?
They are on a mission specifically. This is what they are designed to look for, to find normally quiescent black holes that are just sitting there, for the most part, minding their own business, that light up with X rays when they take a bite of something.
Hmm.
So, most black holes we think are out there not enjoying their environment as a food source, but occasionally something, whether it be planet, comet, glob of gas, something gets too close, gets pulled in, lights up with X rays. They are also looking to try and find the afterglows in X ray of sources of gravitational lensing, of neutron stars that are merging together, of other systems with stellar mass black holes that are merging. And then, of course, they're also trying to figure out what is the stuff that's out there that we just don't know is out there
Hmm.
because we haven't previously had the needed X ray sensitivity or anything that was specifically looking for something that lit up an X ray but not in gamma ray.
It's that same philosophy of Vera Rubin,
Yeah,
this idea of just watching the entire sky in a certain wavelength to just catch everything weird that happens. What was the universe doing when we weren't looking?
yeah,
Well, now in X-rays, we're looking at
yeah.
least at half the sky at a time. And so the universe can't get away with everything. All right, we're going to talk about this some more, but it's time for another break. And we're back. All right. So, as you said, very fortuitous
Yes.
that we got some first initial science results from the mission um, just in the last couple of days, like the beginning of
Yeah.
November, essentially.
And my favorite is their release of we found something and we don't know what it is, in the form
Perfect.
of there was a source that got exceedingly bright in the X-ray, faded away after just a few minutes, and then hung out visible for order of 10 more days before fading away the rest of the way. And so they're comparing this to an object with fireworks, but in terms of saying specifically what this was, not there yet, and that makes it all the more interesting. So
Yeah.
they're out here, they are successfully finding transient objects, they are successfully following up on these merging objects, and they're finding things that they say flicker like fireworks.
Wow.
The
It
artwork to go with this is absolutely stunning, and
right.
I have to say, I
And
can't
not
wait to
real.
see. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, so I mean, another analogy of this is like the discovery of these fast radio bursts,
hmm,
that we didn't know that these things were happening, but then enough of them got caught that now they're starting to build up this much clearer picture of these bright flashes of
yeah,
radio waves that happen once and in many cases don't happen ever again from that same location. And it seems to have something to do with magnetars
yeah,
or
yeah. We
something, some
think,
reconnection of magnetars. And some do repeat now, and that's giving more additional information. But now you've got these X-rays. So, you mentioned we saw a thing brighten up and then is faded away. But there are another class of these objects that do happen on a semi-regular basis that you can actually depend on. And these are, as you say, when black holes consume meals, these
yes,
transient, what are they called? Transient phenomena,
yeah.
L.
They're just transient phenomena,
Yeah.
and in some cases you do
Tidal.
see.
Hmm.
Well, if it's a periodic system, you're looking at a binary system where
Yeah.
quite often it's nomming a neighbor of some sort, grabbing a bite on its elliptical orbit when it gets close enough. Uh, and
Right.
and I just love
That's put such a powerful idea in my mind as I can just imagine the black hole, as the star goes past.
hungry hungry hippo version. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And and what I love more than the periodic ones is the non-periodic stuff.
Mhm.
Where we're starting to understand from the new gamma ray bursts that we're seeing how black holes are forming, and each new kind of discovery is like, okay, so now we're seeing what happens in this specific situation, now we're seeing this specific situation, and it's going to take seeing the full breadth of what's possible to understand the continuum of formation that occurs across different masses and different environments. And so we're seeing with this one probe both gamma ray bursts from the X ray perspective on how black holes are forming. We are seeing in these transient X ray phenomena, in some cases, how black holes are chowing down on things in their environment. And then there's just the weird, we don't know what this is yet, where something gets hundreds of times brighter, hangs out that way for 10 seconds, fades away, and then stops being visible after order of 10 days.
These are some of my favorite kinds of missions. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of why I'm so excited about Vera Rubin. I love Swift, that you're building a new class of instrument that
Yeah.
is capable of detecting the weird things that the universe is doing when you weren't looking. And then the follow-on missions then come around and start to observe these things in more detail and try to understand what they're made of. But it's always so exciting to me
Mm-hmm.
when someone says, "Hey, all of these,
Yeah.
we looked in this new way, and now we found all the stuff that we don't know what it is." And I love that we don't know what it is, and I love that now it's a new journey, a new pathway to try and understand more about the universe. And this is in that class.
And
It is the go
this
ahead.
is ushering in the modern era of multi-messenger astronomy, along with the LIGO, Virgo, and other gravitational wave detectors, along with the neutrino detectors. We are now ushered in by that 2017 neutron star merger. We are starting to see our universe as something that emits particles, that emits these space-time bending gravitational waves, and is shining down on us across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And by being above the atmosphere, the Einstein probe is capturing the X-rays. It can do the zoomed in imaging, it can do spectroscopy, and it has that wide angle camera that's just telling us where everything goes flicker and flare in the night.
That's really cool. Awesome. I can't wait. And as you said, we are in the earliest stages of this. Really, it's the they were going through the process of testing out the telescope to get those first results. So we are still months, if not years away from getting a
Yeah.
proper accounting of everything that was happening with this telescope. So this is a sneak preview, but
Yeah.
I think this still falls within Pamela's criteria for things that we can talk about. And so I
There are
like this.
publications.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. All right, thanks, Pamela.
And thank you, Fraser. And thank you to everyone out there who supports us through Patreon. Really, everything Fraser and I do, and that our entire teams do, is thanks to you. We can't thank all of you, but we do try to thank at least once a month everyone who's at the $10 a month level or higher. This week, I would like to thank Adam and East Brown, Andrew Poelstra, Astro Bob, Benjamin Carrier, Bob Crail, Brian Kelby, Smansky, Daniel Donaldson, David Bogerty, Disastrina, Ed, Father Prax, Frodo Tenenbaum, Gerhard Schweitzer, Greg Davis, Helga Borkag. I destroyed that. I'm sorry. Jarvis Earl, Jeff Hoynemorder, Jim Schooler, John Drake, J.P. Sullivan, Katie Byrne, Kim Barron, Kinsaya Panfilenko, Lou Zealand, Masa Herleu, Maxim Levitt, Michael Purcell, Nala, Paul Esposito, Philip Walker, Robert Plasma, Shersum, Sean Matz, Stephen Veit, The Lonely Sand Person, Tricor, Zero Chill. thank you to all of you, and to all the new people whose names I encountered while reading this and found myself unable to say. Thank you for your patience. If you too would like to have your name potentially pronounced in new and interesting ways, well, I feel very bad about it. Please consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/astronomycast.
It's not a bug, it's a feature. Thanks, Pamela.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. And then they saved.
Thank you for heading off my potential rant at the beginning of the show.
Well, sure. Now we'll go into a different rant.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come up and it's going to come up and it's going to come up and it's going to come up.
Yeah.
So I've got some initial thoughts based on a question somebody asked. So,
okay.
Hal McKinney asks, to what extent does Elon answer to NASA? So I think the deeper question here that people are going to ask is, what are the implications of the administration going to be on space exploration? And it's and science. And it is not as easy as an answer as I think various people believe. I think the simplistic view is Elon Musk loves Mars. Elon Musk makes Starship. Elon Musk has the ear of President Trump. Therefore, what Elon Musk wants to happen is going to happen, that things are going to get canceled, everything's going to be right in the world, blah, 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 right? And that is just not a good way to sort of perceive it when you have to think about the existing momentum that's happening in space exploration, the potential conflict of interest that could happen. Not that that's, even that could be sort of no longer really matters anymore. But anyway, so things are going to get weird is the way that I would really describe it right now. And we don't really know, but we can think of a few things that are probably going to happen. So the first thing is like, the Artemis mission is probably still going to continue.
Yes. That was Trump's to begin with.
That was Trump's idea, right?
I feel it's going to get accelerated.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's going to get accelerated, but, because it still falls within his second term. And so, in theory, as long as they don't push beyond 2029, then this should happen within his second term. But, do you continue on with the Space Launch System? Well, the problem is the Space Launch System has enormous contracts with tons of big companies with very deep roots into the kinds of places that were very strong for Trump. So you've got, for the Republican Party, a lot of Republican Congress critters, as you call them, come from the kinds of the states that are supported. You've got people in Mississippi, you've got people in Florida, you've got people in a lot of states in the South do a lot of work on Artemis, on NASA, on Space Launch System. So it would be a hard sell to just come in with an axe and gut all of that work that's being done, when then those people in Congress are going to have to explain to their constituents why they've whacked away all of those jobs.
It's important to remember Congress controls the money.
Yeah.
Nothing that NASA does exists or is murdered until Congress allocates or retracts the funds. So it's currently looking like Viper will be allowed to live because Congress is indicating it's going to keep funding it. So
great.
What I'm seeing that I'm just going to say what I saw, and I have no clue how to react to it yet. So we've had for a while issues with SpaceX blasely ignoring the Clean Water Act for their facility in Boca Chica. They have completed all the needed paperwork for their facilities in McGregor, Texas. They have completed all their needed paperwork for the facilities in the Cape Canaveral area. But for whatever reason in Boca Chica, they're like, we're going to discharge water. Who cares? And they're yellowing discharging water.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you've got issues with the FAA, the FCC,
But
with the
but did
EPA.
you know that then Blue Origin turned around and did the exact same thing last week, where they also they used a water deluge system that wasn't yet licensed.
Didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So
How'd that work
what
out for them?
what we're seeing now is two different agencies where both Bezos and Musk are in close contact with Trump that are ignoring the Clean Water Act, and Trump is already discussing getting rid of the Department of Education. Schools are starting to get
Hmm.
notifications of this. We are, folks at the DOJ know they're on the cutting block. Employees are starting to worry about jobs and look for new jobs. Does this mean the Environmental Protection Agency is also going to be cut? Does this mean the FAA is also going to be cut?
Yeah.
So this is where
Yeah.
it's
I
going
mean,
to get interesting, where we're looking at self-policing by the mega corporations.
right, right. And so I think it's not the big cuts that are going to be really obvious. You're not going to see the Space Launch System get canceled overnight. It's $4 billion to launch. It's an enormous investment by the various states that are Republican strongholds. It's that you're going to see this whittling away of the oversight provided
Yes.
by the FAA, by the FCC, by the EPA, like
Yeah.
all of these government organizations that are designed to kind of make to encourage progress and yet put certain constraints on things. Those are going to be probably relaxed to varying degrees. And by having a very close connection between, as you say, Bezos and the administration and SpaceX and the
Yeah.
administration, that they can lean on the administration. They can make sure that the right kinds of people are put in these cabinet positions, that they can affect policy within the organizations that they
Hmm.
work for, and that will move more in the direction of these and other entrepreneurs, big businesses, things like that. So I think what you're going to see is you're not going to get the kinds of delays, you're not going to get the
Yeah.
kinds of regulatory issues, but then there are going to be consequences down the road, which is why these things were set up in the first place, right?
Right.
You're like, yeah, no, SpaceX dumping untreated water
And liquid
into
nitrogen.
into an environmentally sensitive habitat
Yeah.
is not going to destroy planet Earth, but it is part of the contribution
Yeah.
that is going to degrade the environment and decrease biodiversity and blah blah blah. And you do that 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times across the entire planet, and it all
Yeah.
contributes to a degradation of our planet. And so it's the if making sure that we don't wreck this little ecosystem is one of the little Lego bricks in the entire castle that we're trying to build here,
Yeah.
you don't sort of stop including those
And
bricks. So
there's three direct things that we have to worry about. So, a tenfold increase in release of hydrocarbons into the ionosphere, so tenfold increase in use of solid rocket boosters, is predicted to cause a 3% increase in atmospheric heating, as well as accelerated loss of ozone, which will affect the northern hemisphere. That will cause increase in cancers. Um, we are seeing a increase in brightness and radio leak in the latest generation of launched Starlinks, which is already affecting our ability to do science with LOFAR in the Netherlands. So we are going to lose our radio sky due to basically fringes in radio emission.
but wasn't that already happening? Like that's not new.
It's significantly worse in the latest generation of launches.
No, no,
So,
no. How is that worse under a new administration? Like I don't
oh,
think
so the FCC will not be able to do penalties for things like this.
right, but I don't think they were anyway.
They were slapping admittedly negligible penalties, but we're gonna see like free for all on that, on use of wavelengths.
Mhm.
And we had seen that there were considerations being given, especially at Vandenberg, for slowing down, or rather not increasing the launch cadence, especially because we're still trying to figure out just what happens when you dump a whole lot of aluminum-based particulate in the upper atmosphere through deorbiting spacecraft. And there's reason to think that those kinds of brakes that are getting put on the system will no longer get put on the system.
Right. But again, nobody is slowing down launch cadence. Nobody is saying,
They actually said we're not going to increase it, which isn't slowing down, but it is saying we're not increasing.
sure. I mean, I think that a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning, although concerning, kind of would have been business as usual under any administration.
Which I hate.
Okay. I just want to be clear. Like I think people are wondering like what are the dramatic new weird stuff that's going to happen?
I think that we're going to see removal of regulatory agencies and
Yeah.
more companies shooting fast and loose and not worrying about the
Yeah.
environment or
Right.
their impacts.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that is what like we're not going to be able to point to those things specifically and
Hmm.
go this is what was different.
Yeah.
It's more going to be as you say, this sort of loosening of regulations that's going to apply countrywide
And
that
loss of the
will,
Department of Education is just crushing. That's like student loans.
yeah, again, we don't know what implications that's going to have. We don't even know how that's going to roll out. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the campaign promises, but who knows? But, the other thing is, people have said, oh, well, Elon Musk is potentially going to be put into a position to make the government more efficient and
A
has
secretary level
proposed.
position. Yeah.
Yeah, but probably he can't because because of the nature of his relationship with SpaceX. So there's
So
a certain
there's a
amount
conflict of
of
interest with
yes,
him becoming head of NASA. There is
right.
not a conflict of interest in him becoming, say, Secretary of State.
Or even just a very powerful advisor. Like there's a whole bunch
Yeah.
of non-official positions that people can get which don't trigger that conflict of interest issue. And so they want his decision-making process. They can get him involved without necessarily giving him any one of those official titles. He's proposed to schwack $2 trillion off of the US budget.
Yeah.
And so, who knows where that's going to come from. And like you could probably go into NASA and make cuts and make the organization more efficient. Like there are 10 different major centers across the United
Yeah.
States that share the responsibilities of launching missions. Like it is not efficient.
Yeah.
And anyone who has done any work with NASA has experienced six different people at different centers in the same meeting who don't talk on a regular basis, and the communication is very complicated and very difficult. But it is the thing that spreads the employment around the entire nation. It is a
Yeah.
political decision to have NASA structured in the way that it is. So it would be politically damaging to shut down centers. But it's the kind of thing.
Some of the centers probably aren't needed at the scale they're currently being used. We
Yeah,
need more
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think anybody could look and
specialization
go,
and less duplication, but the current discussion of removing 30% from the US government, I am not sure there's 30% once you look at, well, we probably shouldn't slash Social Security. We probably
right,
shouldn't slash VA benefits. So when you look at all of the protected funds and look at strictly just the discretionary, you can no longer remove 30% from the entire budget without removing things that
yeah.
NASA actually needs from
Yeah,
NASA.
and I think anybody could go in very carefully and reduce the budget of NASA in ways that would make it more efficient and would have political ramifications.
Hmm.
The trick is it's the speed, right?
Yeah.
If you do this slowly, you do this carefully, you do this with the best results in mind, then
Sundowning.
you yeah, you get to a place where you're better configured for what the future holds and the kinds of, what is the current marketplace and so on.
Yeah.
And NASA has actually, to their credit, they've done a lot of really interesting, very good work with things like the Crew Dragon, the Cargo Dragon, and the versions that hopefully are going to be
Hmm.
involved with the Artemis missions. Like I think not having a NASA center that's responsible for building these things makes it a lot more resilient. So a lot of those ideas have been implemented at various phases. One other thing that I think people have been talking about is, is this going to fast track a mission to Mars, human mission to Mars? Um,
I don't
what do you think
know.
about that?
So,
Yeah.
so if you are slamming all effort in getting to the moon as quickly as possible, while cutting 30% from the US government, there is nothing left for Mars. Um, I can imagine private companies fast tracking their private corporate trips to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a goal that's been proposed by SpaceX
And
that
I'm
they're going to send humans
fine
to
with
Mars by
that.
2028. Right. Do
Yeah.
it.
Private
Yeah.
companies, do what you will as long as you don't like endanger our planet or
Yeah.
endanger life on other worlds. Um, I One of the things I said to you before we went live was I don't see me putting in any NASA grants anytime
Hmm.
soon because I just don't trust that there's going to be any funds to use for science. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that we saw last time around, and the thing that sort of in general, like I think the part that makes it so difficult is that space is so actually nonpartisan. That
yeah,
that when it comes to space, everybody loves space, and you go down and talk to people, Congress people, you wouldn't know what party they are vote for, and you talk to them about space, and you're going to get a variety of different enthusiastic responses, right? That if while there are a lot of things that are very broken down partisan, space is actually one that isn't. But in general, we should expect to see more funds go towards exploration
yeah,
and less funds towards science, and especially earth science, climate monitoring, things like that.
yeah. We are looking at the National Weather Service being on the chopping block.
Yeah. Yeah. So things like that, right? That are, and it's possible you could say, well, that isn't within NASA's purview. I mean, it definitely is in my mind.
Yeah,
But, is NASA about sending humans to beyond Earth? Is NASA about exploring space with robots? Is NASA about improving technology and observing and monitoring the environment of our planet? These are all separate conversations that are probably getting had at this point. So,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I think like just in general, it's too early to know. It's too early to know what role Musk and SpaceX is going to have on the future of human space exploration.
hmm,
Um, Apart from considerable ongoing, just like I mean, they're already almost a monopoly, so more of that. Um, we don't know what the future holds for Artemis.
yeah.
Probably not a big change in the short term.
I honestly think this will be good for Artemis in
Yeah.
terms of any technological hurdles, getting everything moved out of their way, licensing granted
Hmm.
faster, permissions granted faster, extra money thrown at them.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I,
think it's
I
going to
agree,
be
especially with
devastating to science.
especially with the Chinese
Yeah.
moving forward on their plans to send humans to the moon. Yeah. Okay. Uh, how many asks, why are black holes limited by how much material they can consume at once?
Because as the material flows in, because of conservation of angular momentum, it gets slowed down. As it gets slowed down, it piles up into these extremely high density accretion disks that then light up, and their light pressure pushes things back away from the black hole, saying, no more food for you. You've had
Right.
enough.
Right. And this is the Eddington limit.
Yeah.
But apparently it doesn't always hold.
The universe is more creative than we are. And there's always if it's flowing in at exactly the right vector, it doesn't get caught up by conservation of angular momentum. In general, that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's enough chaos in the system, it's starting to look like the Eddington limit can be um, moved past
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
turbulence.
Right. And this was this work that came out. You must have reported on it this week about a black hole that was caught feeding 40 times faster than the Eddington limit early on
That
in
I
the
hadn't
universe.
seen, but we've seen this before.
Right. So they saw it was thanks to James Webb, they saw a jet moving away from this black hole and they calculated the speed of the jet, the amount of material in the jet. It told them that the black hole had briefly feasted at 40 times the Eddington limit. And it was great because I was looking for okay, what's their explanation? And they're like, oh, as you say, turbulence,
Yeah,
maybe?
we've seen this before, and it's been hand wavied at with turbulence in a chaotic system.
Yeah, yeah, that a black hole can actually, with its magnetic field lines, turbulence around it, that there's ways that it can sidestep this problem and actually feed on material sooner than more quickly. And that would be great because black holes seem to be a lot fatter early on in the universe than anyone was expecting.
Yeah, yeah.
So some process is fattening up those black holes early. Um, so weirdly, we don't have any other questions. Do you have any questions over on Twitch?
No, I think everyone is just in a morass. Like, yeah, yeah. Everyone is just.
Everyone's just numb. All right. Well, we will report obsessively about everything that happens
Mhm.
from now until the end of the universe.
It's
But
true.
now until the heat death of the universe, us reporting, keeping you updated on every little thing that's going to happen, the good and the bad.
We'll need to switch to robot bodies at some point.
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Just,
yeah, we'll go
just
through multiple phases of robot bodies. But
so.
but we're
Yeah,
here, continue to do this work in as independent a manner as we can humanly organize.
and in order to attempt to cheer up whomever I can, one of the things I do in my spare time, because it's important when you read teleprompters, as we both do periodically, me more than him, I think. That has swapped over the years. I practice reading out loud, and I love to read fiction. So I'm going to be reading a story recommended by Michael Myers, one of our patrons, called Herland, which is a feminist utopia. I didn't know that such kinds of fiction existed. So we're going to be reading that starting tomorrow night over on Starstrider on Twitch. So
Awesome.
join me to escape this reality into a turn of the last century feminist utopian novel.
I love that you're finally using your mellifluous speaking voice for good and not for evil.
I'm trying. I am trying.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Pamela. And thanks, everybody. Thanks in advance to Rich and the rest of the team. We're going to have to deal with this nonsense, try and edit it into some kind of cohesive manner. Now I continue on with another interview shortly, as well as my live show. So it's going to be, I'm going to be wiped out by the end of today.
You're going to be
But then
wiped
tomorrow, I
out
got
for the
nothing.
good of the rest of us. For the
There
good
you
of the
go.
rest of us, you suffer, sir.
Yes. Glad to do it. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye bye, everyone.